Now that you're comfortable adding and subtracting complex numbers, let's move on now to look at some examples of multiplication of complex numbers. And the first one we're going to look at, the square root of -2 times the square root of -7, is very similar to an example we looked at a while back. Now remember, if you have the product of two square root expressions where the radicand of each is negative, what we need to do first is to express each of those radicals in terms of I. So what we'll do then is to rewrite then the square root of -2, we're going to think of that as the square root of -1 times 2. And in a similar way, we'll rewrite the radicand of the second radical then as -1 times 7. Now you know at this point that the square root of -1 in each radical will come out as I, so we have then I times the square root of 2. In a similar way, we're going to have then I times the square root of 7 for the second radical. And I times I will be I squared. And the square root of 2 times the square root of 7 will be the square root of 14. And we know that I squared is -1. So our final answer then will be negative the square root of 14. Now for our next example, we're going to think of the I in each of these terms as being as though it were an X, so a variable. So we're going to simply distribute the 6I on the outside of the parentheses through both terms inside. So the 6I times the 4 will give us then 24I. And then the 6I minus the 10I, if we multiply those, will produce minus 60I squared. So now we'll have, and let's come down to the next line here, we have then 24I minus 60 times, now we know that I squared is -1. So this will then give us next 24I plus 60. And we would like to write this in A plus BI form, which means we would like the real term stated first. We'll then have 60 plus 24I then as our final answer for this. And moving on to the third example, and we have the product of two binomials. We can then rely on the old FOIL method that we've learned some time ago. So if we multiply the first terms together, the 3 times 5 will be 15. The outer product, 3 times 9I, will give us 27I. The inner product, -2I times 5, will be minus 10I. And then the last terms multiplied, -2I times 9I, will give us minus 18I squared. So now we do a bit of simplifying. So we have then 15, and the middle two terms are like terms. So that sum will give us then 17I minus, now we probably don't need to do this too much longer here, but we'll replace the I squared with -1. Then we have 15 plus 17I, and then that product will give us 18 there at the end. And so now if we add the 15 and the 18, that will give us then 33 plus 17I as our final answer here. And again, note, it's an A plus BI form, where we have the real part first and the imaginary part second.